Well, good morning, fellow conservatives from McLendon-Chisholm. A great Wednesday morning to you, and we're glad to have you with me today. And I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about today, which is, well, we've got a couple of topics. One is really about how we can be deceived. And a lot of people think, well, I'm above being deceived. I can't be deceived. And it's interesting because my wife, one of her biggest complaints about me is that I'm far too trusting in her opinion of others. And it's gotten us into trouble where even though I've gone on Angie's List, for instance, I didn't realize how Angie's List works, that some of these contractors, they can create their own post by creating identities and making their approval ratings look higher than they really are. And so we've gotten into trouble several times because I have always looked at people and trust people based upon what they say. I don't just assume that someone is lying to me, and it's just kind of the way I've always worked. And it's gotten me into trouble, I realize, but it's kind of the old adage: fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me. So I don't know if you've ever been deceived, hoodwinked before, if you've ever been taken. It's a terrible feeling, I got to tell you. And it's specifically why I look for justice when we are deceived, when we are lied to, when half-truths and misinformation goes out. It's something that I work hard to combat, and is why I do what I do here, and why I created Conservatives for McLendon-Chisholm. It's why I created Citizens for Representative Government for McLendon-Chisholm. It's focused on facts, not on conjecture, not on innuendo. It's not intended to slander. It is intended to produce hard-hitting, fact-based evidence, and that's what I've done every step of the way. When I'm wrong, I post retraction. I highlight where I was wrong and why. So that's what's different about conservatives and liberals. And we're gonna see liberalism, we're gonna see leftism on display toward the end of this show. And I got some great feedback yesterday. I had bumped into an old friend who's been in McLendon-Chisholm a while, and he gave me some good advice, and I'm going to try to take it as best I can. He recommended that we try to shorten the shows, and he said 10 minutes would be ideal. I said I agree, but show prep for a 10-minute show to get everything that I'm trying to get in to 10 minutes is very difficult, and it actually takes 10 times the amount of time to prep for something like that than to just speak extemporaneously, which is what I'm doing. So I appreciate those of you who have hung in there with me. And what I'm excited about is I was notified this morning by the person who helped me set up YouTube and all this stuff that we've had over 700 views of the Knife-Wielding Man video, and I want to thank you for helping get that video out. That's because of you, and it's passing that video along, forwarding it to friends. But what I was alerted to was it's not just the fact that we've gotten that many views, but the overwhelming number of people who are viewing it, unique individual viewers, the true number, which some viewers come back and they can look at it a couple of times, or they'll go and look at certain spots. But the actual individual viewers are watching the entire thing, which I was told is pretty remarkable. So that's exciting. That's good. And the facts that we present are empirically based and supported by empirical evidence, which makes a big difference. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is a true story about my experience in working with the Republican Party. And it was when I was working for President George H.W. Bush on a presidential advance team is what I was doing. And I'm from Houston. I grew up there, born and raised, and went from Lee High School, graduated Lee High School in Houston, went to College Station to work or to go to school and get a degree at A&M. But between high school and A&M, I worked for the president. It was because it's Houston, and there's a lot of things go on in Houston. In fact, I worked the G8 summit, what was then called the Economic Summit, and the Republican National Convention, both of which were hosted in Houston. And that experience was unique because at that time we had what we called the Big three guys who really were instrumental in helping to get those events to Houston, but also really in throwing great parties. And you know what? I just realized all right, I hope that's a little bit better. I was wondering why I was a little muffled. But the purpose of what we're doing, the Big Three, as I call them, their names were George Strake, S-T-R-A-K-E, Ben Love, who is a Democrat, ironically, and Ken Lay. The three of them kind of made what we call the trifecta, and they basically were the movers and shakers. They made things happen in Houston. And so because of my position with the president, or the president's advance team, I worked with and had a lot of time to work with Ken Lay. Now, if you're younger, you may not be familiar with Enron. And I would encourage you to watch a video, or a documentary. And it's one of the best documentaries that you'll ever see. It's entertaining. It holds your attention. It's incredibly informative. It's called The Smartest Guys in the Room, and it was based upon the book, The Smartest Guys in the Room. So if you're a reader, you may want to pick that up. It's a real lesson in deceit and how the smartest people in the world can be deceived. Mr. Lay, because of my position, I had to work a lot with him. I'd have to go meet him in his office. We were preparing, and what the trifecta we call. What they did was basically they were in charge of the Houston Host Committee. And so they held amazing parties all over the city of Houston. They took care of the press pool and making sure that the press was happy and letting them enjoy Houston. And they wanted to let them see Houston. So that was big for them. And in working with Mr. Lay, there were many times where we would be en route somewhere and would get a chance to get to know him. And what I learned from him is that we had some things in common. We're both followers of Christ. We both believe in Jesus Christ, and we were open about our faith. His father was a preacher. He said he was a preacher. And he talked a lot about integrity and talked a lot about how important honesty and integrity is, and how honesty and integrity has really built Enron. And at that time, Enron was the biggest player, not just in the city of Houston, not just in the state of Texas, but when it came to energy, Enron was the biggest player in the nation. Its stock was one of the gold standard of stocks. And if you watch The Smartest Guys in the Room, or if you read the book, you'll see that they could do no wrong. And Lay's reputation really set the stage for a lot of people putting a lot of trust in him. And when he hired Jeff Skilling, to come in and to be the president and CEO, Skilling obviously really catapulted Enron in a lot of ways, and most of them were not good. And Mr. Lay, for all of the things that he did good, there were some things that were really detrimental. And so I had, at one point when we did the G8 summit and the Republican National Convention, I had such a great time getting to know Mr. and Mrs. Lay. I wouldn't call us friends, so I'm not trying to drop names in that way. But what I am saying is that I was around him enough to say, man, this is a guy that I really want to emulate. I have a lot of respect for him. His office was incredible in the Enron building. His home, it was something else. So this is someone that I really, really thought highly of. And so it was when I was working a U.S. Senate campaign in Nebraska, where I where the Enron debacle kind of unraveled. And when I started hearing about it, I said, well, that just can't be true. A lot of people said that. President Bush said that. A lot of people were saying, well, this just can't be true that all of these things are going on. And over time, I will tell you, I was an apologist for Enron. I just knew that there was something going on, that all of the people who were saying the things about Enron, about it being a black box, a true Ponzi scheme, I just didn't believe them. And I thought, well, there was a political motivation behind it, or there's just got to be something wrong with these people. I think it was one reporter from one of the financial magazines who basically kind of started to unravel the scheme that was going on. Well, I was one of those who just said, I just don't believe it. It just can't be true. I know Ken Lay. I didn't know him, but I knew, and I was around him enough to go, I think this guy's honest. And it took about, after Enron fell, and it fell hard and it fell fast, it devastated not just the company, but it devastated, not just employees, but it devastated the lives of so many people who invested in this company. Many people put their life savings in Enron. And in the end, the stock was completely worthless. And there was nothing that people could do to get out of it. They couldn't sell their stock, and it was truly devastating. It was probably a year and a half before I was willing to kind of look at the facts. And I read The Smartest Guys in the Room. It was probably longer than a year and a half after Enron collapsed. I'm not sure when that book came out, but I read it because I was just curious about what they would say. And the more I read and the more I looked at the facts, the more I realized that what they're saying about Ken Lay, about Jeff Skilling, and about what Andy Fastow and what happened at Enron was true. And I could not get away from the facts. Facts are stubborn things, as John Adams used to say, and they don't care about your feelings. And as hard as it is to believe that someone like Ken Lay, who I thought so much of, could violate so many people's trust, it became apparent that is exactly what happened. When we move forward into McLendon-Chisholm, it is understandable why there are so many people who are just unwilling to acknowledge that people they know are honest, they know would never lie. It is impossible for them to look at facts. And at the end of the show, I'm going to show you some what I call "you can't fix stupid" segment. I'm going to focus on one of these efforts, and people are just unwilling to look at the facts, and you'll see it. It's just prevalent. And the facts are the facts. Where I'm wrong in facts, I'm willing to acknowledge it. These people are not. And so I opened this conversation, I opened this today's show because I want us to all recognize that even I could, if I was deceiving you, I would need to be held to a higher standard. I'll say this, that one of the things that I picked up this morning, I read a proverb a day, and to coincide with the day of the week. And today was obviously Proverbs 17. And what I found interesting is that there's a verse in 17:13 that says, "He who returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house." And that's important. That's important. Whether or not you're into the Bible or not, I realize that this is a political issue. You know, I'm talking politics. I realize bringing my faith into this is uncomfortable to some people, but I can't walk away from my faith in Christ. That's a big part of who I am. And when I read that verse this morning, I thought about my own house, and I thought about my wife. how we're about to celebrate 24 years of marriage, and I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be married to a woman who I am truly in love with, continue to be in love with, that she's in love with me, that our daughter is just a precious joy. I think you can see a picture of her behind me, and the fact that my house is in order is indicative of what is the reality of what's going on. Look, I also just want to make a plug for one thing, and bear with me on this, because I know that there are a lot of people in our community whose marriages are struggling. And I want you to know you're not unique. You're not terminally unique. My wife and I struggled in our marriage. My wife and I fight for our marriage. It's not easy being married. I get it. And I want you to know that there is hope. And I have a solution, I think. It's called Reengaged. And it's a ministry that Watermark created. And it's a ministry that's right now at Lake Point. And you will go, if you and your spouse are struggling, or you don't even have to be struggling. Maybe you're just kind of in a drift. I remember my wife and I, we said, we're just kind of drifting. We're not really drifting together. We're kind of drifting apart. What could we do? And Reengaged was the solution for us. And we've led a Reengaged couples group, just a small group from Reengaged, and led them through that. And I got to tell you, it's a wonderful experience. The reason I'm saying this is because I know that there are people who are suffering, who think that their marriage is not what you hoped it would be. And there is hope, and there is a place where you can go where not everyone is perfect, and where everyone else is struggling too. And it's Reengaged. If you don't feel comfortable doing it right here in the community at Lake Point, go to Watermark, and you can kind of be more anonymous if you want to be, you and your spouse. And you'll walk into a big group, an enormous, not enormous, but a big room. And there's a lot of couples in there. And every time you go, you'll hear a story of transformed marriages where you will hear some of the most amazing things that people have been through in their marriage that you go, how on earth could that even be possible to overcome? In fact, what's interesting is that last week I'm meeting with a new ministry, and about doing some consulting work with them. And what's neat about it is the founder of this ministry, her and her husband, when she got married, was an alcoholic. She didn't know that. And for 5 years of her marriage, the first 5 years of her marriage she was in an abusive relationship. It was living hell. She had to separate from living with him. And it was awful, but God transformed their lives and transformed his life, and their marriage today is a true illustration of grace that is possible for you too. If you think that there is no hope, well, what have you got to lose? That's what I would say. So if you think your marriage is hopeless, what have you got to lose? Just try it. Just see what you think, and just see that you're not alone. So that's my plug for that, and I hope that it's helpful. Well, this morning I want to go through the finance reports of the different candidates and just kind of show you where everyone's bread is buttered, if you will. And I'm going to move away when I start getting into the donors. I'm going to try and move away from it so that, because there is, even though it's public record, there are addresses here, and I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, or I'm not trying to basically give away people's addresses and things like that. That's not the purpose of this. But I do want to go through this, and I'm going to start with Lorna Kippett's. And by the way, this all of these will be posted on this YouTube site, so you can go and look at it for yourself. And so the first one is Lorna Kippett. I'm going to try to move past where her address is, so that, and it's on most of these. Her campaign treasurer is Deborah A. Branch. And Campaign finance report. Again, there's the treasurer portion. So let me move to this. Here we go. Okay. So you can see, so the total pledges, total political contributions of $50 or less is about $500. Total political contributions is $5,330. Expenditures, total political expenditures of $100 or less are $47, and total political expenditures are $3,388.96. And so that kind of gives you a look at that. She has, let's see, okay, so I'm going to move away from this. Let me go to, all right. So this will, you can kind of see it, but not really see the, so you have Joe McDonnell of $500, Mike Donegan, $350, Deborah Branch, $1,000, William Laughlin, $250. Lorna has given $500 to her campaign. Joanne Murray of Tennessee is $250. You have Country Club Gail Adcock of $100. Sorry. Joanna Wallace, $100. Frances Egan, $100. Grace Hessman of $150. Dana Mooney, $100. Dave House, $500. And, oh, by the way, so Donna Mooney is from San Antonio, New Braunfels in the San Antonio area. Steve Hatfield, $150. Nancy Morgan from Ohio is $100. Another Keith Morgan from Ohio is $100. Stu Mayberry, their neighbor, Colonel Mayberry, $200. Lorna Kippett, another $200. William Branch, $150. And Missy Evans from Naples, Florida, $100. Steve Lindsay from Heath is $100. Keith Short, our current mayor, is $100. Trey Landry, $500. Sarah Parks, $100. And let's see, I think it continues. All right, so those are the contributions. So not surprising, Gary Moody, Steve Hatfield. You have people from out of state giving to her campaign, out of our city giving to her campaign, and so that is always unsettling to me when people from out of the city and out of the state. But look, this is a free country. They've got friends out of state. I get that. I don't hold that against them. I don't necessarily think that that's a negative. So while it's unsettling, it's not something that's unusual, or it's not something that doesn't happen all the time. I certainly didn't take any out-of-state or out-of-city contributions, and I don't think that the other candidates have either, but we'll see. Let's see. So signature signing. So for advertising, the signs cost $121 at Lowe's. Obviously, these are the stakes for that. That was $43.40. Signature signing graphic, $121.24. Okay. That's a great deal. Key Element Media. So this is online advertising. So she has a consultant doing her online advertising. That's pretty nice. And that's $366. And okay, Ed Valentine, very familiar with him. He is a direct mail political guy that does a lot of political direct mail. He did it for Gary Moody and Steve Hatfield. He did it for Mark Kippett. He does it. He did the. Let me see if I even have it. He did the mail piece that went out about the fire department. You know, he does a lot. And there's a couple of Yeah, see all of this. 1,975, Ed Valentine, 254, 483, all of that to Ed Valentine. And then there's another signature signing graphic. No big, not, so that's basically, that's pretty common in when we look at people's finance report. But you'll notice, there's a lot of money coming into Lorna Kippett's campaign. A lot of money, $5,000. That's a lot for a little city campaign like this. I suspect that we are about to be inundated with mail from Lorna Kippett. Get ready. Hold on. Here it comes. So, on political contributions, total political contributions is $1,745. Her total expenditures this is Trudy Wasner. Sorry, I'm going to Trudy Wasner now. Total campaign political expenditures is $1,385. She has $599 in the bank, and she has a $350 outstanding loan. It's probably a loan to her campaign, which is it's not unusual. So, and I hope that Adrian Balcom, when I see it, because I've actually not looked at any of these ethics reports yet. So I know that they were posted a few days ago. I just haven't had time, but I hope Adrian Balcom is putting loans to her campaign rather than outright gifts, because I'm encouraging voters to contribute to her campaign. We'll look at that. Let's see. So, who are the monetary political? Judy Moss, $100. Randy and Edie Bullock, $100. So, interestingly, the Bullocks. So, Ms. Bullock is our election judge. They're from Heath. So it's interesting. They put the P.L. box of Rockwall, but they don't live in our city. But Ms. Bullock is our election judge at City Hall, and I'm going to talk about the election, early voting, and I'm going to urge everyone not to vote at City Hall. The fact that she has pictures with all three candidates, with Lorna Kippett, Trudy Wasner, William Dahl, that she is helping campaign for them, that she's giving to their campaign, and she's our election judge, which is for a city election. The reason they bring someone in to be an election judge from outside of the city was so that there is some separation. But clearly, this is inside baseball. I'll talk more about that later. So Judy Moss. Who is Judy Moss? I can share a lot about her. Gary Moody, Mike Donegan. No surprises to any of them. I guess they saw that Lorna Kippett had plenty of money, so they directed it at Wasner and I'm guessing Dahl. So here we have another gift. This one is from Carroll Construction. So a business. Carroll Construction, $250 from in Heath. Okay, that I think is interesting. Deanna Tucker, $91.80. Kenny Griffin, he's in Royce City, $91.80. Steve Hatfield, $100. Not surprised. Keith Short, $100. By the way, just if Trudy's watching this, on these gifts of under $100, I don't think you have to actually report it. Let me just look real quick, because I think the schedule even says, oh, it's $50 or less. Okay, never mind. You do have to report it. Apologize. So Keith Short, our mayor, $100. Dave Howe hosted a meet and greet and gave food and refreshment for an in-kind gift of $80. And then, okay, this is her loan for $300. Not unusual at all. Pretty typical. Then you have expenditure categories. So Keeper's Press, printing expenses. You're talking about $567. $189.44. Executive Press for printing. So what is interesting about this, unpaid incurred obligations. Okay, she just hadn't paid herself back. expenditures made by credit card, don't really care. Okay, so what's interesting is that Lorna Kibben is using a Ed Valentine. He is a political consultant. He does direct mail. He basically runs campaigns. We're about to get flooded with mail. Ed Valentine is a mail guy. So that's his bread and butter. And so get ready. But it's interesting, Trudy Wasser's is not using this, the same people. So she's not getting a lot of help financially, although obviously she's getting the help from the same people, the usual suspects, if you will. And so now I want to move to, this is William Dahl's campaign report. And let's see. Okay, so here is his total political contribution is $1,855. Total political expenditures is $1,505, and he's got $298 in the bank right now. So, political contributions. He's got one from Robert L. Amick for $500. I'm not sure if that's a McLendon-Chisholm address. It may be. I just don't recognize it. Joanna Wright, $50. Thomas Hughes, this is a P.O. box in Rockwall, which tells you this is not a citizen of McLendon-Chisholm, $200. Deanna Tucker, $100. Amber Kempinski, $50. Judy Moss, $50. Robert Quinn, $50. Colonel Mayberry, $150. Keith Short, our mayor, $100. Robert Davis, $50. Frankie Poole, $25. Steve Hatfield, $100. Earl Landry, $50. Wayne Bailey, $50. Avner Singh, $50. Mike Donegan, there you go, $200. So, a lot of smaller contributions. And there's, okay, so you have Avner Singh from Royce City. Those are all, so not all, most of them actually are inside the city of McLendon-Chisholm, except, let's see, yeah. So that's where William Dahl, I'm surprised that he's not giving to his own campaign or even making a loan. $80 from David Half, obviously for the candidate meet and greet that he held. Political expenditures made from political contributions. Reet Dahl, okay, so his wife is being paid a political expenditure for an advertising expense. It's not a lot of money. It's $30. Big deal. All right. So AGE Graphics, he's getting his political signs at AGE Graphics. He's going to Walmart for printing labels. He's REIT is getting another. No, this is for, no, sorry. This is Alpha Graphic is the payee. Let me go back there. Okay, never mind. I apologize. It wasn't Reet Dahl getting paid. It was Canva. So strike my concern over that at all. Staples. Okay, so AGE Graphics gets $720 of that. And I think there's another. Alpha Graphics gets $135. And Staples $131. I'm guessing that's just for general supplies. And personal funds. Okay. So $4, $34. All right. So that's generally where we're seeing money. But again, like we're seeing, you're seeing the same people: Gary Moody, Steve Hatfield. These Judy Moss. These are the same people who backed. Oh, and Mike Donegan. Sorry, don't want to miss Mike Donegan. These are the same people who backed Keith Short, Herman Larkin and Jim Bloom on their campaign reports. Okay, so David Day. Let's see. Mr. Day, who's running, he and Lorna Kippett, who are both of whom are veterans, are running against one another. And his total campaign and political expenditures is $1,049.75. And $1,049.75, $49 in expenses. And if you notice, no political contributions. Mr. Day is funding his own campaign. He is not beholden to anyone. He is an independent conservative for sure. Political expenses made from personal expenses. So he paid. This is just okay. This is advertising. This is for the. This is $567 for the yard signs. So I think Scott is the one who must have purchased the signs, and then Adrienne, she went and got the posts. So those are reimbursement expenses, expenditures made from political contributions. And again, he's making political contributions to himself, to his own campaign, which is, like I said, he's not making loans, and he's just leaving all the blank pages in there, I guess. Let's see. This is pledged contribution. Okay, he's making. Well, he didn't. He didn't pledge anything. Okay. Oh, he's just filling these in. I guess he wasn't sure he wanted to put in all the forms just in case. And I get that. These forms are a little bit cumbersome. So Scott Turnbull. Let's look at Scott Turnbull and let's look at all of his donors as well. So here we are. Total political contributions, 0. Total political expenditures, $812.09. So Scott Turnbull is funding his own campaign as well. So his expenditures are $243. This is the advertising and printing for the roadsides. I'm sure those are the stakes. The imprint, so this is the advertising and printing company, $557.60, and there's a campaign office holder, campaign finance report. Oh, okay, this just got put in the wrong place, put at the end as opposed to beginning. And then we have Adrienne Balcom. Adrienne Balcom, of course, she just. There we go. So you got $50 in contributions and $823 in expenditures, and she has $50 in the bank for her campaign. So she's spent on GoDaddy, advertising expenses, Victory Store $243, $557 to imprint for yard sign and holders, and advertising and printing $557. So again, same kind of thing, and it does look like Scott must have paid for the signs, and so she received benefit from it. So she has to report that. Advertising expenses. Well, actually, no. She has to share in the cost because these must be advertising and printing. So it is yard signs. And personal funds. Adrienne Balcom is funding her own campaign, expenditures from personal funds, unpaid incurred obligations. So $50 is a political contribution from Erin Mann. So she's got one gift of $50 for her campaign. That's it. So that's where your candidates running for city council are getting their campaigns, their campaign funding from, and so it should be of no surprise to most of you on a lot of these things. So that's exactly what I expected would happen, and I'm not surprised to see the same people giving to the same kinds of candidates, as before. And so, again, I go back to the fact that you have three candidates who are basically running their own campaigns, that are independent and and have demonstrated by their actions in office, Scott Turnbull and Adrian Balcom, that they are true conservatives and will and continue to uphold the standards that they set. And then you have other candidates that we focused on that are the three others that are not. And there's a lot of reasons why I would not encourage anyone to vote for Lorna Kippett, William Dahl, and Trudy Wassner, specifically because their actions demonstrate that they are not conservatives, as this show has continued to show. Now, finally, I want to go back to our "You Can't Fix Stupid" segment, and as part of that, I want to bring out. Let's see. I'm going to basically focus on a post that was sent out by a gentleman who is actually one of the official spokespersons for the Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm PAC, and this is a gentleman named Daniel Lewis. And Mr. Lewis put out a post, and I believe this must be yesterday. And this is the post. It says, "Would you consider this domestic terrorism? An ex-mayor of McLendon-Chisholm lost by a landslide last election because of his radical views and hatred toward police and firefighters." I had no radical views or hatred toward police and firefighters. I had concerns about the accountability, and what's interesting. Well, let me just continue. Not sure what American goes after those who serve. Oh, not sure what American goes after those who serve our community, putting their life at risk for others. Well, this ex-mayor had these flyers made and put on people's doors. So when your kids come home, they can pick it up and worry that there is a killer on the loose. It's to incite terror and make you watch an hour video of the ramblings of this ex-mayor. We don't need trash like this left on our doorstep to make our kids not feel safe. Our kids should not be politically pawns. Stop terrorizing our kids, and shame on the people who support them. Well, interestingly, Daniel Lewis is a, like I said, representative of the Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm PAC, Mike Donegan's and Gary Moody and Mark Kippett's political action committee that sent out false information to voters. And Mr. Lewis got on a radio show. The reason I say that he is an official spokesperson is because he got on a radio show last year that was sponsored, that was supposed to be affiliated with Americans for Prosperity. That's an organization that my wife and I have supported for years. We first got introduced to Americans for Prosperity at the Republican National Convention in New York. I was a national delegate, and they had an event at the Rainbow Room where we kind of were enlightened to the kinds of focus that they have, which is to bring fiscal responsibility into government. Problem is, they also have a radio show that's on this Facebook page, and their political reporter, the political reporter for this radio show, happened to be the consultant for the campaigns of Keith Short, Herman Larkin, and Jim Bloom. And I can prove it. When we've pulled our names to say who was going to be in what place, first or second on the ballot, Mrs. Kuykendall was their representative. Her signature is on the sheet that shows that she was representing them. But she also was the representative for Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm Political Action Committee. Not a representative. She was the consultant to that PAC. Now, can I prove that? No, I cannot. And why can I not prove it? Because Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm PAC has never filed a financial disclosure statement, as you've just seen these candidates do, which is required by law, and is why Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm PAC, as you saw in the Knife-Wielding Man video, why they are being fined. Gary Moody, its treasurer, former mayor of McLendon-Chisholm, the treasurer of Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm, is being fined $1,000 for not filing a financial disclosure statement. Mrs. Kuykendall was the consultant both to the campaigns of the three candidates and a consultant to the Political Action Committee. Even though I can't prove that, only their financial disclosure statement would be able to do that, which is why I believe they're not willing to post their financial disclosure statement, because it is illegal. It is against the law for a political action committee to engage in the campaign of in an organization's campaign. And the fact that she was serving both is a clear violation of Texas state law. It could void the election. It is a monumental problem. And the fact, but it goes even further than that she used her influence as the political reporter on this radio show to invite Steve Hatfield and Daniel Lewis to come on their show and talk about the campaign and the fire department issue, to berate and castigate, to present information that was baseless, to present half lies, half truths, misinformation to the listening audience, a large majority, well, the majority of them being conservatives like me. Mr. Lewis was the representative for Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm. Now, I find it fascinating that Mr. Lewis is, again, making false statements, hatred toward police. Never, as I've already talked about in a previous show, never have I ever been disrespectful to police officers. The fact that I said that police don't prevent crime is not, it is a point that I keep bringing up. Facts don't care about your feeling. It's an empirical fact. Police don't prevent crime. That's not their job. Their job is to enforce the law when a crime is broken. A police officer cannot prevent you from speeding. That's why you get a ticket when you've broken the law. And as I said before, are there times where a police presence does deter crime? Sure. But there are also times when police presence creates crime, as we saw a few years ago when 5 police officers were murdered by a hate monger who hated police officers. And the reason I bring that up is because Mr. Lewis, this is the same Daniel Lewis, who posted on social media castigating me and the city for not lowering the flags at City Hall to half-mast in honor of the first anniversary of the murder of 5 brave police officers. What Mr. Lewis didn't care to know, and I think he knew actually, but Mr. Lewis didn't care about the fact that that Mike Smith was a friend of mine, that he attended my church, that I attended his funeral. Mike Smith gave his life, and his 2 daughters and wife live now without a father because of this murderous hate monger. And Mr. Lewis had the audacity to post that we don't care about respecting police. Not only that, but the person in charge of lowering our flags was our city administrator, a guy named Dave Butler, who's retired now. Dave Butler just so happens to have been a retired police officer. For Mr. Lewis to not insinuate, no, to stipulate that we don't care about police is despicable. This is par for the course. Mr. Lewis was a volunteer firefighter with the McLendon-Chisholm Volunteer Fire Department. He was never a full member. He was a probationary member. Mr. Lewis benefited from grants that the fire department received so that he could go to fire safety school. And I don't know if Mr. Lewis attended that fire safety school or not. But Mr. Lewis never achieved whatever it took to become a full member of the volunteer fire department for whatever reason. But what I believe happened in those grants, in those grant requests, when the MCBFD received a grant. I believe their grant writer, so quote unquote, the brother of the fire chief, received his 10% regardless of if that money and those grants were. I've since figured out that those grants were put into kind of coupons, if you will, that basically the fire department uses, and the Texas A&M Forest Service pays the Texas A&M Fire Safety School or wherever they're supposed to go. So Mr. Lewis has very close ties to the fire department. Does that mean that he can't, that things that he says are just by its nature invalid? No. I'm not arguing that Mr. Lewis doesn't have the right to speak about things that he knows, but he has absolutely no right, or, well, he does have a right to slander. I mean, I guess that's okay. When you're a leftist, you can say whatever the heck you want. You have no standards. What does it matter? Who's going to care? Certainly not those who support Mr. Lewis's slander. So that was that post, and of course it just created a fury, a firestorm, and the postcard that I put on doors was, and if it offended you, I apologize. The question that I have is, why aren't you? Everyone is talking about the postcard, but no one is addressing the issues that I bring up. No one is refuting it. No one is rebutting it. Of course, Mr. Lewis, on the other hand, here's another post within the same string. The funny thing is that he's not a conservative. He is a self-proclaimed libertarian. Okay, here's a lesson in libertarianism. I've called myself a fiscal libertarian and a social conservative. So libertarians are, from a fiscal point of view, very, very conservative. They're liberal when it comes to social issues. And I'm pro-life. And talk about any social issue, and I'll be on the social right of those issues. So again, he speaks about something that he does not know. He says he's for small government, but then adds whole departments to the local government. Are you talking about the fire department? When you contributed to helping to play politics with our fire safety, because that's what you guys did. It's exactly what you did. Going on that radio show for political gain. That was the whole purpose of it. He wanted to rein in government spending, then cost the city $125,000 extra a year in legal fees. Have you seen the video on the facts about attorney fees, Mr. Lewis? Obviously not. Or you probably have. You just don't care about facts. Lie. Another lie. Then talks about the majority. The majority have spoken. And he's talking about the last year's election, where voters were basically bamboozled into believing things which were patently untrue about me, Wayne Orchard, and Melody Osario. What a sad joke this has been on our once quiet little town until a northern politician moved here. A northern politician, that's what he calls me. Mr. Lewis, I'm from Houston. That is south. Okay, let me help you there. That's south. I was born and raised in Houston. I worked for President Bush, and I spent a lot of my time in Houston doing that. Then I went to Texas A&M University. That's a school that's south of Dallas. Okay, still south. I graduated Texas A&M University. I went up to Nebraska to work on 2 U.S. Senate campaigns. One of them two U.S. Senate campaigns, and then came back home. I'm not a northern politician. And I came back home to work on political races for right-wing political candidates. One of them was a guy named Dennis Berner, a bird colonel who led the cavalry division in the Vietnam War. And those of you who know anything about the cavalry, that's the helicopters. I ran Leo Berman's race, state representative, who defeat Ted Campbell to serve the Tyler area. To serve the Tyler area. I'll tell you, it's interesting. Mr. Lewis has no concern about what is true, because that's what the left have to do. All of this comes right out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. That's what the left uses to attack conservatives. Read it. Look at everything they're doing. It goes right down the list. Let's see. So, Northern politician moved here. Yeah, you're an ignorant individual. We have all suffered. Our town, home prices, S-E-N. Never mind. I'm not going to. Again, I don't want to focus on the irrelevant. Sense of community, so sad, all because of one petty man who has a grudge. Here's Adrienne Balcom. This is what she says. Can you let me see if I can move this over. Let me just do this. Okay. Here's what she says, and I love this. Daniel, everything you have shared is false. I'm sorry, bud. You really don't know what you're talking about, and I realize you want to defame him to deter people to not listen to him, which is true. Boy, she got that right. You do realize that those who vote is not the majority. Boy, is that true. I mean, 600 people, 700 people out of 3,000. There is approximately 2,600 people. It was not a landslide victory. That's correct. As you shared your misinformation in your original post, as well as excluding the contact information, which she's basically referring to the fact that Mr. Lewis refused to put did not want to put the contact information in his post when he showed the little card, and so that's what she's talking about there. Okay, and so then we're almost done here. This is the same string. You do know the chief's brother at the time the grant was written made 0%. What is he talking about? He's talking about that when I highlighted the fact that the fire chief's brother was the so-called grant writer who wrote the grant right at the time that we knew we would get it. So basically, we received $200,000, or the MCVFD did, and $20,000 of that went to the fire chief's brother. Mr. Lewis is claiming that didn't happen. Really? Just so you know, Herman Larkin has publicly stated that happened. But here's the bigger question. You were on the fire department. You were the representative for the Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm PAC. Why aren't you insisting that the fire department, why weren't you one of those who advocated that the fire department have an audit? Go through a certified audit by an independent accounting firm, the same accounting firm that has been auditing our city's books for the last 10 years. Why were you opposed to that? Is it for the same reason that you support Neighbors for McLendon-Chisholm not filing a campaign finance report, Mr. Lewis? The city got a fire truck. Let me continue. The city got a fire truck to protect the citizens because a guy wrote a grant request. But the mayor at the time made money from a survey that cost thousands when he denied ever knowing about it. Come on. I made money on a survey that cost thousands? Excuse me? I made no money on the survey. The survey engine that was used was the city's. I made no money, zero. But you know what? Why don't you present evidence of fact to prove it? If I spent money and there was if I had spent money and there was a reimbursement, that's not making money. If that's your evidence, which could be the only evidence that you would have, but you don't have evidence. Why? Because you are a slanderer. You are a liar. You care not about what is true. You only care about presenting things that are not true. You are an infraction of a man. That's what you are, Mr. Lewis. a man who can't tell the truth. Here's Jason Balcom. I love Jason. That's Adrian's husband. And I got to do a shout out to Jason because, buddy, I mean, as conservative as I thought I was, man, I think Jason outmatches me. He's been at Louder with Crowder. He's been with Louder with Crowder he's had his mug for, I don't know, he said a couple of years. Okay, so I'm just now getting mine. So this guy is a stud. I love Jason Balcom. Total BS is what Daniel Lewis is what Jason Balcom says. In fact, the contract made between the MCVFD and Chief Jones' brother was made 17 days before the grant request was received. Lots of laughing out loud. It's all there in black and white. And what does Jason do? Does he just leave conjecture as it is? No. He provides the documented evidence to demonstrate that what he's saying is absolutely empirically and irretrievably true. This is something you don't get from the Daniel Lewis's, Mike Donigans, Gary Moody's, Mark and Lorna Kippett's, Steve Hatfield's. You don't get this. You don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get that citizens are starting to wake up. I know that you are because you've contacted me and you've said, hey, we're catching on. We appreciate you sending me that information. And I appreciate those of you who are hanging with me on these shows. And again, so the guy I talked to yesterday, he's like, "Hey, keep it down to 10 minutes." Okay, I blew it again. By the way, I'm not in my garage. This is not my garage. This is actually my studio. And maybe one day I'll give you a tour. But it's interesting. Another thing that Mr. Lewis said was that I'm in my garage. He's never been to my home, just so you know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I appreciate you being with me and hanging with me on these things. And please do vote and do keep up with what's going on in this election, because it really is going to have major implications into our future. So thank you for hanging with me today. I'll see you tomorrow. Pretty much the same time, and look forward to talking with you. Thanks for being here. Talk to you later. See you tomorrow.